Hello, everyone. Welcome to our soul session on Saturday.
Yeah, I hope you guys are doing well and staying positive.
Yes, we are really excited to share this content with you. Timely content, and it's called Cultivating an Enlightened Mind. And it's really about how do we hold what do we do with our mind when the external feels a little uncertain? How do we hold our vision? And really what we're going to teach today is something that you should apply no matter when things are going well or when things are not going well. It's just a kind of a general idea of working with the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to talk about where it comes from and kind of the background of it?
Yeah, I do, but
Okay.
I want to start off by just reminding everyone that we have our new spiritual course that if you haven't signed up for it yet, it's absolutely free. It starts on Monday, and we're not going to be here in the group for it, but we will have if you sign up, you get an account with our Thinkific service, our courses, and then you'll get the visualizations that come with it. You'll have the replays of the videos and the audio that you can download. So be sure to register so you can get the reminders, and we'll be on Zoom. It'll be on video, and then you'll actually be able to call in. You can we can unmute you. We could talk to you. It's a little more interactive than here. So
Yeah, and be ready to go deep.
Yeah.
Because nobody has accused us of not going deep.
yes, and hello everyone. Hi Phoebe, and Lori, and Munsa, and everyone. Cindy, Jennifer. We are really excited to be here and be with you because it's what makes our life meaningful. This is our purpose. So let's start with what does it mean to cultivate an enlightened mind, Rob, in your opinion, in 2 minutes or less?
Yeah, a little context because context is everything to understand, let's say, a deeper spiritual psychology. So the content that we talk about, the ideas that we talk about in our spiritual psychology, which is kind of the deeper foundation of our work, you really have to understand them that they're coming from a very different paradigm than the material universe paradigm, which we all operate on in this transactional reality, meaning the everyday reality. We just assume that the universe is made out of material, and science and physics kind of confirm that for us. And we operate under those principles.
And we're in this world that all this stuff is happening, and we're basically powerless to like kind of bobbing around, and
we're just reacting to
reacting. Like someone said in one of the Vivekananda's books, he said it's like a cork bobbing on the top of the ocean, being pushed around by the waves, and that's kind of how a lot of people feel right now. So how do we become the ocean?
Yeah, and so the ideas spoken of in the Gita and the Upanishads, which we're going to be talking about, they assume a very different universe. And if you want to understand them properly, you have to make that adjustment. So a lot of people try to understand them from the materialistic perspective, and it doesn't make sense, or it gives you kind of a weird, warped understanding of what they're talking about. But if you adjust your mind to understand that it's a conscious universe, it's a conscious universe. Now, it doesn't mean all the laws of nature don't apply. Obviously, they apply because they keep the patterns going, the pattern we see in nature and the cycles of the seasons and the planets. Of course, they're still operating under those laws, but it's nature, meaning our perception of that universe is really what's creating it for us. The interaction between our consciousness and what's called the material universe is really what we're experiencing.
And the material universe is an extension of us versus separate from us.
That's it, yes.
And so a lot of people, like when I first started doing hypnotherapy and I was learning the law of attraction, what they teach in that, they assume that there's a material, like our thoughts are material, and then those thoughts go out and magnetize and bring material things back to you. And that's actually the wrong understanding of how the universe works. It's that we're not these separate bubbles and that we're pulling and magnetizing. Of course, there's a concept of that in the universe of the material world, but it's not separate from us. We are connected to everything. So everything that we create in our life, every experience we have, is basically connected to us in some way. So there's not like, oh, those bad things I'm going to stay away from, or those are good things I want to grasp toward. They're all a part of our mind, and that's cultivating that mind is very, very important.
Yeah, and we'll be kind of talking more about that concept of what is the conscious universe versus the material universe. But we wanted to give you something that you can work with right now today. And this comes from that philosophy. And in order to understand it, try to make that shift. At least open up the possibility that you are the creator of your world. You know, and we know this not only from these ancient teachings in the Upanishads and the Gita, but also from current neuroscience, that it teaches us that our perception is really what makes sense of the universe to us, and it creates it and constructs this reality for us in a very direct way.
Before you go on, I'd like to just add, I love one of the things that you have said before, which really helped me understand, is the idea that everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. That what appears to be matter is not as solid as we think, and that we are that consciousness. So everything is consciousness. Everything that you experience and things that you are unconscious that you experience is part of consciousness, and you are that consciousness. So I love that idea. So let's talk about where the Gunas come from, or what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so the Gunas...
well, the enlightened mind.
Yeah, the enlightened mind, it's part of, let's say, the Gunas play into the enlightened mind because we're going to talk about a state of mind called Sattva. And we'll get to that. But they come from this philosophy called Samkhya. And, don't worry about the Sanskrit terms. I just want to give you background for those of you that want to research or want to look it up or whatever you want to do. The Samkhya essentially says there are two main forces in the universe, the spirit and matter. Now, the Purusha and the Prakriti, meaning Purusha is like the universal soul. So if you think about Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, it's that moving, unseen force that...
We're all like a soup that we're all in. Right?
Yeah, it creates everything and moves everything. The unseen, right? The seen, meaning the manifest universe, the way we experience it, is Prakriti, meaning nature. It translates as nature or matter, right? The material manifest universe. So between these two forces, then you have, if you ask, how does the spirit actually interplay with matter? How do matter and spirit interact? And the Gita explains that it's through the Gunas. Now, Gunas is another Sanskrit term. It translates as qualities, meaning the qualities of nature, the qualities of the material world, are really what shape our life in a very direct way.
And if you think about the world, it's always moving. It's like everything's temporary. Like there, even things that you think are solid, say, even the rocks. If you go to Utah and you see all those beautiful rocks, the wind over millions of years shaped those rocks and changed them over time. It may take longer. And then other things, you buy, cereal Monday and it's gone on Friday. That's gone. Or like furniture may take a little longer, but each material item takes longer to kind of move through its change. And you might not notice the change. A new plant arising, you may notice it, the changes than a full-grown plant. So, but everything is in constant movement. In our life too, we're aging, we're getting older every moment. We're constantly having to eat and replenish the body. So there's always movement and change. The good news is that if you're in a place where you aren't happy where you are, the movement is certain. Change is certain. That's something that you cannot, that you can't move against. There's always change. And so in a way, we always have the ability to create the change we want in our life. We're never stuck anywhere,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Gita is a conversation between Arjuna, us kind of asking, what do I do with my life? And, how do I manage this suffering that I'm experiencing?
And the battle, he's in a battle, so it feels that way to a lot of people, that life is a battle of external forces. And how do I don't want to fight. He drops his bow and he says, I refuse to fight. And Krishna says, you have to. This is your duty. You have to. So we all have that duty. We can't just relax and give up. We have to do something. There has to be movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And Krishna, of course, represents the divine element in us. Mm-hmm. So they're not separate. But back to then, how is this practical for us, right? All these cosmological forces operating spirit and matter, but what do we do with it in our own mind? Mm-hmm. And if we are indeed operating in a conscious universe, how do we work with these? Mm-hmm. And so the Samkhya, the philosophy of spirit and matter, says there are three levels of matter that interact with spirit on an individual level. Meaning we're a combination of both spirit and matter, right? We have a mind and we have this spirit within us, but we also have a body that interacts with what we perceive as the material world. And
then we have this unseen spirit that we can't see, but that is giving us movement in life.
That's right. And so it says there's three levels to this interaction. The first one is Tamas. Now, Tamas translates as inertia. So if you think about water in its solid form as ice, it doesn't move that much. It's kind of slowed down to a very slow, inert form.
Or a lake that has no movement to it, a puddle of water that just sits there, and it starts to gain moss and
that's right,
a lack of life.
Rocks also, they seem to be static, but we know they're, like you were saying, they're always
slow.
They're moving also, but they're very slow, very inert. Then the second level,
and the earth too. I mean, if the earth, and the great thing about Tamas is that if the earth moves so fast, like we know what happens in California with earthquakes, we don't want to have the earth shaking all the time. So that kind of that steadiness is also a great quality in experience and matter. That there's this gentle kind of strength, like holding us in matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Time. Yeah, it says that the all three forces are needed for nature to operate, for the laws of nature to operate. So you have this inertia. Now, psychologically, what that means for us is that when we're in a state of tamas, our mind is very sluggish. We're kind of just going by the basic survival elements of, what do I need to do to just maintain life?
It's like a lack of motivation. It feels like, what's the use? You feel like no matter what you do, nothing changes. So why bother? That kind of depressed state almost sometimes, a lethargy. You're kind of on the couch watching Netflix, trying to pass the time, but you're not even happy. You're just kind of a little down, a little slowing down.
Yeah.
When you're sick, you go into tamas. Your body is kind of recovering, so you're not really in an active state.
Yeah, I think the couch potato analogy fits well. But it also says that tamas is a state of ignorance. So what that means is the mind is not perceiving the world in its right perspective.
It feels like it's powerless to the world.
That's right. Yeah. And so it feels inert. It feels like there's not much movement. There's nothing I can really... My sense of agency is dampened. I don't feel like I can make changes in my life. So and then he says the second level, which is rajas, and rajas simply translates as passion and activity. So this passion and activity, it says that's what builds the world. If you look at the cities and the highways and the freeways, all bustling and going back and forth at super speeds, That's rajas. It's that activity of doing.
Going to work, waiting for the weekend, looking for the paycheck, feeling like kind of rushed. And it's almost it's like an anxious state of you're not there yet. So you're just kind of on a treadmill. Yes. And you're in movement, but you're not really going anywhere. You're kind of feels like it's just you're not really creating anything new. You're just kind of almost like treading water. If someone throws you in the water and you're just like, you're not floating like Tamas.
Yeah, the treadmill.
The treadmill and the kind of treading water, and you're just kind of just trying to catch your breath. And it's interesting because that's kind of where the world has been. It's been in this kind of Raja state. And then now we're all forced to shut everything down, and it's this Tamas state where everything's sort of stopped and slowed down. Nothing's stopped completely. It's just slowed down a lot. And so I really do think that most people go from that rajas. They get exhausted, and then they give up, and then they kind of, either recharge or they're just give up. And so I think both states benefit because one is at least has a little hope, and the other one is like not as hopeful. But if you're chasing, getting exhausted, we need that tamas to kind of slow your mind down a little bit, to kind of slow down and say, what the heck is going on here? And so sometimes when we're in that state, it really is a chance to look within and say, what is going on?
Yeah, on the spiritual path, it is essentially where the person now starts to believe and understand that the things that I do, the actions that I take, give me results, either negative or positive, but they give me results, and therefore I should act and I should do things. And there you see most of us kind of fall into that level of activity where we're always wanting to do things in order to get things. Yeah, and we understand the principle that if I do things, I'm going to get things.
And if I do things the right way, I'll get the right thing.
Yeah.
Or if I don't do any, and then that's where you get to Tamas, because you try different things, and then if things aren't working, you end up going, well, it's almost like you lose that lack of motivation or drive, and you fall back again.
Yeah, it's very seductive because if you think about it, our senses essentially tell us that if you want something, if you want food, if you want comfort, shelter,
you want love,
whatever you're looking for, that you have to act to get it. And therefore, we're conditioned by our own actions. Now, this is important to understand that it's our own actions and the way we take those actions that condition us, because we're expecting our own reward. And whatever's rewarding to us conditions us to act more, and whatever's not rewarding us conditions us not to act, right? To pull back, like you say, to fall back into tamas. So you have these two states that most of the world lives in. If you look at most humans,
unawakened people are kind of
in tamas, definitely it's that people don't understand spiritual principles at all. The reality is covered. The true absolute reality is covered over by ignorance. And in rajas, you start to get a glimpse, but you're still operating in a very kind of
attached way.
In a very attached way. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That you're attached to the results of your action, and that those things are motivating you to act. You're not acting from a higher level of mind.
And then I want to talk about action for a minute, because a lot of people think, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm at the couch. I'm going on Facebook and reading a lot, so I'm not really taking a lot of action. I must be in tamas. I want you to think of these as states of mind as well. Is your mind in a sluggish, depressed state, or is it in a worried, anxious state? And so that's the rajas is that anxious, I got to do something, that feeling of, I got to do something. And the tamas is more like, everything's going to end, and there's nothing I can do. And, maybe kind of like powerlessness and defeatedness. But the anxiousness is really more, I got to do something, that kind of feeling of, if I can't sit still.
Yes.
And I can't stop my mind from it. So it's that obsessive thinking, not only just obsessive acting, but obsessive thinking. And so those two, like you said, are the predominant. But we want to, how do we get to a place where we're actually creating from a divine place, from a place of truth, versus chasing these carrots that are so in front of us that we never capture. And a lot of us, this is a perfect time for us to look within and say, I've been chasing money my whole life, or I've been chasing this idea of love my whole life and been miserable. What can I do now to cultivate a different mindset, so I can be happy in life? Like, happiness probably is now probably on a higher priority list than for a lot of people right now. So how do I cultivate joy, bliss, states of mind? And then through that, that's where you get all the other things. The things that you really want come from having a state of mind that matches that. If you're in anxiousness, you're thinking, well, this other person or this money or something is going to calm that anxiousness. You're giving your power externally to something else, and then you're chasing the carrot. So the key is to be the carrot, not chase it. So to see that what you're seeing is your own mind, that you are that consciousness, you can create, and the higher knowledge breaks you out of what you say is the covering of what you're really looking at, what you're really seeing and sensing of the world, and what's possible for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that takes us to the third state, which is Sattva. So Sattva translates as clarity, goodness, light, happiness, joy. It's that state of mind where we're at peace, but we're still alert, and we're optimistic, meaning we're seeing possibilities in our environment, in the universe.
And there's still a little attachment to wanting. The desires are there. They're human. It's a human state. It's not that, oh, I don't care, the world is going to just figure it all out. Like, you do have intentions and create from that place. So it's not that you give up and you're just like, abandon the world, like renunciate. But what you want to do is you want to create a mind of a bliss, so you can create something in the right way or the right understanding, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you want to look this up, it's in the Gita in the 14th chapter. So Krishna says this. He says, in Sattva, you're still attached, but you're attached to knowledge and to happiness. In other words, you're going for the good stuff in life, and you're using your mind in, let's say, at least based on the understanding that if my mind is the one that's telling me whether I'm suffering or in depression or inertia, it's also the one that is able to tell me when I am happy and joyful, and to create those states of mind.
And then you could choose those states of mind regardless of the external. That in this moment you could choose happiness. And that is actually the most powerful thing, is imagine that you weren't dependent on the external being a certain way for you to be happy. How much power would that be in your life? Because most of our lives, we've been conditioned that happiness is out there. Now, I know we have real issues, and we have real, human problems, and people we love and we care for, and our businesses and our, jobs and all those things that we're concerned about. So it's not about, like putting like a pink little paint over everything and just saying, I'm just going to be at bliss and everything's going to work out. You want to, have that right understanding that you can still desire to have, income, to have health and your family be well, and to see, the world heal and all those things. You could still have those things, but it doesn't have to take away from your happiness. And one of the things I remember, I teach a lot to my clients, is that instead of making the goal finding love, or making the goal, making money, make the goal your self-awareness. And if you can, because through self-awareness, you'll get all those other things, but you put the self-awareness on top, and then those other things will fall into place. But if you don't put self-awareness on top, you're stuck in those lower states. You're stuck in the Tamas, where you're rushing, nothing works. So I'm just going to be depressed for a while and pull back. Then I'm going to try again. I'm going to pull back. If you put self-awareness first, self-knowledge, and joy and happiness, like I'm committing to just be happy. I'm tired of being unhappy. I'm tired of make this situation of my life making me unhappy. You can start to really shift all those other things in your life. It just has to start from that place. So a lot of people in different spiritual traditions will dedicate their actions toward Jesus or toward Krishna or toward Allah. You know, they dedicate, it's a practice of dedicating everything they do for the higher form of themselves. If it's not a formal religion, maybe it's your higher self. I dedicate this to know who I am, to know myself in its truest sense. I'm dedicating this to my soul, soul's growth, whatever works for you. That would be a way to get out. So one of the things I think I want to talk about these three levels is that a lot of people, when you're in tamas, they think they can just turn it off and go to sattva right away. So let's talk about how we move through the levels, that you can't skip. You have to start where you are. So if you're in tamas, what would be something that someone could do? What would be their action, their call to action, or how would they shift out of tamas to go up to rajas? You have to go through rajas to get to tamas. So one of the things that we suggest is that you start doing something. Even if you're attached, get into rajas, get into action, because you find a way to be motivated. And if it's not for a higher purpose, at least for a little purpose, you start kind of moving through. And because someone in tamas isn't motivated at all, and then nothing's happening, it's very stagnant. So you want to get in movement. You want to kind of move through things. It's almost like when you get up in the morning, you don't go from like a stiff state of sleep to like, whoa, I'm going to do like a, marathon. You get up, you move around, you got to kind of warm up your body. And so that's kind of the state you want to get into. You want to start getting into movement again. Even if you're still attached to the result, at least you're moving, at least you're going. And then if you're conscious, you don't have to stay in rajas either. You can move up to the next level. So then when you do that, when you're in rajas, what happens if you're going through this consciously?
Yeah, I think the key is the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And so this is not any ordinary knowledge. What the Gita means by knowledge is higher knowledge. And higher knowledge is very simple to define. Higher knowledge simply means knowledge that teaches you about the true nature of your mind and the true nature of reality, meaning it's moving you towards your true self. Mm-hmm. That's higher knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it's not just talking about information about the brain or about physics or economics.
Neuroscience, yeah.
Yeah, it's talking about a particular kind of knowledge which it defines as your own inner wisdom in essence. So you're going to find that knowledge through your own inner wisdom. And the way you do that is in the sattvic mind. It's a mind of contentment. You already understand that I'm complete within myself. I don't need to wait till I get that house or get the relationship or get the position to be happy. I can generate that state of mind in myself because that is my true nature.
And I want to warn people, this doesn't mean you don't take action toward those things, because in life we do need to pay our bills. We need to have love, and it's not that I don't care about those things. It's that I release my attachment to letting me not having it in this moment make me miserable or make me anxious or make me worried. And if we have that right understanding that if our mind creates and cultivates our experience, wouldn't it be easier to cultivate happy money and success and love with a happy mind? Or do you think, what kind of love or money or job are you going to create with a disturbed mind? When we have a disturbed mind and an anxious mind, we settle for less. If you're in your own business, you charge less for your services, or you take a job that's lower than what you think because you're so desperate to get. You settle for relationships that aren't good enough, that don't treat you well, or you tolerate, or you're chasing and you're not really enjoying dating at all. You're just kind of like next, and that's not the right person, and you're getting annoyed. And so the process of acquiring what you want and creating what you want becomes very stressful and anxious. So when you have that sattvic state of mind, it doesn't mean you're saying everything in my life is perfect and I don't need anything. You can still create, but there's a difference between a need and a want. A desire to want something, to have an experience of something from that sattvic mind is much different than that rushing need from the Raja state. And so so again, this is not about you stop and give up and sit under a tree and just meditate on angels and rainbows and say, the Lord will take care of me, the angels will clear the earth, and everything's going to be fine. It's that you do care. You want to make phone calls if you need to talk to people. Someone just mentioned earlier, what do I do if there's, not enough ventilators? And I suggested, here's what you do. You take action. You call the people that you need if you feel called to take action towards something. But the worry and anxiety is extra. You can do those things in a sattvic state of mind. You don't have to do them in an anxious state of mind. And I think what happens, though, is that we're conditioned that the only way we're motivated is when we're in fear. We're conditioned to be motivated by fear. And when we're motivated by fear, we're in that Raja state. So how can we cultivate and be motivated by love, by happiness, by joy? If we all practice this, all of us, and have that ripple effect, we could change the way the world operates in the world. Imagine that everyone starts creating their businesses and their relationships from that other place versus that fear. I mean, this is why relationships don't work out. This is not just because of this time that it's difficult. It's the human condition that we're really working against. And so cultivating from that love is really, really important. And the love of self. For me, you always say to me, Rob, don't worry, never fear, the self is here, the God is here. That's really that kind of idea, is that I'm loved. I'm coming from that divine place, and I'm going to take action. But it's like I trust in my deeper self that there's this power within me, connected to me, that's a part of me, that can never be broken, that can never be harmed. And that's what we're acting from.
Yeah, so when let's say the wheel of rajas, that spinning of always chasing, of always grasping for things to make us happy, when it slows down, it's an opportunity to either fall down into tamas or to rise up, right, into sattva. So it's right now is a time to focus on this higher knowledge, and in whatever way you see it.
Which is why we're doing the course, because I think it's really going to help people. So if this resonates with you, make sure you sign up. It's absolutely free. And we're going to talk about all the higher knowledge. And it's going to shift your perception of the world and your power.
Yes, it's time to make a commitment to go to the next step, upward, right? To step up into on a more meditation, more joyfulness, like you say, acting without attachment, so that you can you're not creating your own suffering. Because in life, we know that state of rajas is what creates our suffering, because we're always giving away our power by saying, when I get the material reality, I will be happy. So we're giving that material reality all our power. We're saying, you have the power to make me happy and make me unhappy, instead of understanding that, oh, it's my own mind.
I can choose.
Yes.
I just have to do this. Your hair, like fixing you. So you look pretty. Anyway, I think that we know that it's not out there is neutral. It doesn't feel like it right now, but what we're seeing is neutral. It's what our mind makes up about it that creates the reality. And Carl Jung talks about this idea of a psychic epidemic. And it's really our duty to create and cultivate that enlightened sattvic mind, because the more we can do that, the more will ripple effect to everyone else of getting out of fear. The world needs love right now. All you need is love. The world needs love. And you can do your part. Not only just you want to change the world. They say you start with yourself. You start with that mind. And the less people that are feeding fearful thoughts into the Maya, this experience that we're having here as human beings, the more the world can change. And so you getting into fear just contributes more to more fear. And so, and again, don't beat yourself up if you're scared. Let yourself be scared if you need to be. But do it from the higher place. Like allow your emotions to run. Don't suppress any emotions. But we want to watch ourselves from that higher place of witnessing and saying, "Wow, I'm noticing that I'm a little fearful right now. I notice I'm a little anxious right now, or my mind is anxious. I'm not my mind." And practice, just allowing yourself to let your mind be there, but gently redirect it, like a feather hitting a balloon, like gently, just refocusing it. You're not shoving it, and don't be anxious. You're going to create terrible things in the world. Be gentle with yourself. That's the sattvic mind. It's not that rajas, I got to think positive and I can't think negative and I got to shut everything out and I can't be fearful. We want to do it in a very gentle way.
Yeah, the Gita says there's 3 levels to it. First, you hear it. In other words, you hear this information. You understand, okay, there's 3 levels to the nature of the phenomenal universe. Then you identify it within yourself, meaning you contemplate it. You ask yourself, what state of mind am I in? Am I being driven by this rajic mind of trying to control things and trying to have things so that I can be happy? Or can I cultivate this sattvic mind? Can I sit down and meditate? Can I read higher knowledge? Can I associate and listen to people that put me in that state of mind?
And I think that we're really forced to do this. It's really hard when our lives are busy, but this is an optimal time. Imagine that you're watching the plates spinning, keeping those plates spinning, they don't break. And imagine you sit back and you watch them all crash and you stay at peace, whether they're spinning or not. That's mastery. That's mastery. Now, not all of us can get there tomorrow, but we want to work toward that. We want to take what are things that I can do today? How do I stay in the moment? How do I cultivate that mind? And when you get into Rajas, you just remember, just do the witness idea. I'm watching my mind get anxious right now, getting attached. I'm not my mind. What do I want to focus on? And a great tip for you and what I use is you come up with a symbol. I think I talked about this in an earlier video this week, is think of a symbol and anchor in something that you can grasp onto, because externally everything is changing so fast and so crazy right now that you're trying to grasp on a good news or something that's positive, and it's still that rajas. So if you have this within your mind, some kind of groundedness that you can just hold that vision, hold that happy feeling, it'll really give you something to hold on to that's more something you can control than out there. And I think that would be a great practice. And even do that, you're going to find that you're going to be less stressed. When things show up that you're worried about, you go back to that symbol. It's not about suppressing the feeling, but about redirecting the mind and holding it and seeing the truth. And remember, you're doing this with the right understanding that who you are is powerful, that you're connected to everything, that you have your consciousness itself, your pure awareness.
Awesome. We're
Yes.
going to do a little Q&A.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions? We're going to go a little longer. If you have a question, there's Lori Mentors has made a bunch of comments there. That's great. Like, what are the things you want versus need? I think a lot of times that when you get in a place like this, you start to think of, what do I really need? For me, it's I'm needing my roots done, but do I really need it right now? Like, it's fine. It's what the things that used to stress us out. I was speaking to a couple people yesterday, and I was saying that all the things that we worried about a couple weeks ago that were such big deals now are so small. They're such small problems. And how can we let go of some of the things that used to worry us so much? How can we be more peaceful in the moment? Um, anyone have questions? We'd love to answer them. Taking them all in. I'm just going to post here. It's Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
You put double A.
Is it double A?
No, you put double A, but it's double T.
Oh, okay. There we go. I posted there. Here we go. With regard to roots, this isolation many women will show their true colors. Yes. Oh, I have the root powder, but I just bought my own. I ordered it from Amazon, so I'm going to try to dye myself. We'll see what happens. But I do have Madison Reed root powder. That's what I'm using right now. It's doing pretty well, but anyway, the little problems, right? That we have.
The cares of the world.
Yes.
But that's precisely how Rajas gets us, is that the cares of the world, it says, kind of choke out the sattvic mind.
Yeah.
Because if you focus too much on this external reality and you worry about it, you cannot reach that sattvic state of mind.
And you're very emotional in that Raja state, so you really can't even make conscious decisions. You're just reacting to things. And a lot of times we don't even realize, like, what are we chasing? What are we caught up in? And it's really giving us a chance to say what's important. You know, when I was, right before I met you, a year before I met you, I was laid off from my job, and I was in the corporate world, and I ended up becoming a hypnotherapist and changing my life. And it was that time I said to myself, I had the summer off. I got laid off Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. It was like the perfect timing, and I had a severance, and it gave me time to think of, what do I really want to do? What have I been doing? And then I started taking action, and now look at where I am today because of that. So a lot of times this is a reset for us, and really asking ourselves what's important, what I've been chasing, and then you start taking action. And if you can't do anything right now, just take action toward achieving higher knowledge. I want to achieve higher knowledge. I want to dedicate everything I do right now for wisdom, for me to have self-awareness, for me to be clear, for me to be in that pure love state. So the question is, if you are in Sattva, does that mean you don't have any fear?
Yes, but keep in mind, these three states are always operating at the same time. So the Gita explains that everything we do is a mixture of the three elements. Because we're still in the material world, we're acting as bodies, but one of them predominates. So what you want to do is you want the sattvic mind to dominate your actions, your thoughts, your emotions, your state of mind, in essence. Because what that does, it reduces fear and it puts it in the right perspective. We never want to get rid of fear because it's like an alarm system. We need to have it in place when we need it. But we also need to understand its, let's say, its function, its true function, instead of letting it override our logical thinking, our ability to make decisions. We understand that, my fear alarm system is going off, but I can make a decision from a higher vantage point, from that sattvic mind.
And you can't have courage without fear, so it's not all bad.
Yeah,
that's what courage is made of. It's like it brings us to a place of seeing what we're made of, and it's only like for me. When I lost my job, I was able to create a business. I saw how powerful I was, how I can move and be the creator of my life, consciously create my own destiny. We always talk about that. Is that imagine that you have that power. It's not about getting those things, but having the understanding that you can consciously create your own destiny. That is really what you want to create. Is the mind of that I'm in control, that I can create.
Yeah. Yeah,
and states of mind as well. You're like it's mostly your state of mind that you can control.
Swami Vivekananda said that we come to this world and it's like a gym for us. we get to work out our karma. We get to really
Jim.
yeah, we get to test our ability to believe in the spirit and to trust it, and not just fall into the sattvic. The rajic mind.
So, can you please address job searching at this time? If someone has one interview during this time and feels anxious but also excited, how can that person best prepare for the interview and get the job opportunity the person needs very much right now? Well, if you're anxious, you're actually putting in this idea. You're assuming that this. First of all, you're making a lot of assumptions here. You're saying that this job is the only job available. You're saying that this job, I need it, and if I don't, something terrible is going to happen. So you're already creating this anxiousness. So a lot of times, this is one thing I worry about with the law of attraction. People are like, they want to like create something and manifest something, but it's coming from the false idea that if I don't get this thing, something terrible is going to happen, or I need it desperately. So what we want to do is we want to have non-attachment. That I would like to create the conditions in my mind to have a great interview and to get this job. I would very much like it, but I let go of the worry and attachment around it because I know that I'm consciousness. That's who I truly am, and it's the higher knowledge that actually gets us to release the anxiety. And I could tell you, I was out of work when I was homeless, manless, and jobless. I was out of work. I desperately needed a job. I was not working. I didn't have I didn't have a partner or a rich family to take care of me. And so I applied for this job that I very much wanted, and I didn't get the job. And I was not attached. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe 5 or 6, it was around a month, a little bit over a month later, I got a call from someone from the company, and he said that the job I applied for was taken by someone because I was overqualified, but the person that was interviewing actually got fired, and they want me to take his job. So I was unattached, and I ended up getting the VP position versus the coordinator position because I was really qualified for the bigger. It was just not that time, and so being unattached really helped me cultivate and create another opportunity. But if I would have shut it down, and I don't know if that opportunity would have came because my mind wouldn't have been open to it. So it's the same thing with love. When someone meets someone and they're like, oh my God, I got to make this work. I haven't had a date and I'm texting with this person. And it's like finding an oasis in the middle of a desert. And then you get all anxious and then you're not really yourself. You're so attached and you end up pushing it away because you're coming from the mind of Rajas, which is assuming that you don't have any control and that you can't have it, because you can't be attached when you assume that you get what you want. I'm going to repeat that. Attachment is assuming that you can't get what you want. So the way to be non-attached is to assume you get what you want. It may not be exactly what your ego wants, but you always get what you want. And a lot of times what the divine wants for you is much more than what your little ego wanted. My little ego wanted that little position, making half the salary just to feel safe. And then I just was open and I ended up getting my dream job that had paid twice as much, almost more than twice as much. And it was a higher position and more qualified for me. So you just have to let go. And there's things that we can't see and we have to trust in the unseen. And what we tend to do when we're in Rajas is that we trust in the material. We trust in the physical reality with the material, what's in front of us, and there's not what's going on in the world, and we're making decisions based on the material reality, not the unseen, which is pure potential.
Yeah, there is this kind of expansiveness in the sattvic mind. Essentially, what you're doing is you're opening up possibilities. And we know this not only from the ancient wisdom, but from current neuroscience. Your brain has a confirmation bias. Whatever you believe to be there, it will show it to you. That's why it's so difficult for people to step out of that magic cycle, because the senses confirm what they assume to be true. So you have to practice sattva, meaning opening up the mind to all possibilities, and we do it through non-attachment. When we're not attached to a certain outcome, we're essentially saying we're open to whatever lesson, whatever opportunity the universe wants to show me here. And we start to see it because we're opening up the mind.
So this is a great question, Rob. This one is for you. I'm thinking of something I've already experienced. We can be in peace in whatever situation, but we cannot avoid the turbulence of the collective. So we need to find some ways not to get caught in the collective state of mind.
Yes, Jung talks about the herd mentality.
Yes,
we are collective creatures, social beings, and
the
therefore,
psychic epidemic. I was saying,
yeah, emotions like fear and panic—they're contagious. You see it in crowds, you see it in the mob mentality.
Toilet paper, people are buying. I don't know. I still don't understand that, but
yeah, and so you have to be conscious of it first. We don't necessarily have to separate ourselves. You know, the retreats and monasteries and cloisters, of course, they were designed to kind of physically isolate you from those things. But in the Upanishads and the Gitas, we see a great teaching about being able to live in the world through non-attachment, and it has the same results as if you were up in a mountain in a cave. Because,
it's like karma yoga.
Yeah, because you're acting with this higher consciousness, this awareness that ideas are not solid. Whereas when you're caught up in the crowd, in the fear or the collective chaos that's going on, you simply assume that this is telling you something real, something true.
You're caught up in the attachment with everyone else.
Yeah, and you're carried along.
That assumption that something is, you have to worry about something.
You're carried along like a log in a
rushing
river.
Yeah.
Whereas as you understand the nature of the mind, you're able to hold your own thoughts and understand what your thoughts are and where they're coming from without getting caught up in the drama. That's what the sattvic mind gives you. And then you're able to make decisions outside of that crowd mentality. The herd mentality.
Yes,
like
and it's like your responsibility to do that. And I think as we individually, I have this great map I'm going to draw for our class. So make sure you tune in, because it's really cool, of how we individually see the world we want to be in. And that if there's clusters of people that are going to be collectively fearful, and there's going to be clusters of people that are collectively uplifting and holding. And there's a small percentage of people that are enlightened on this planet that are actually holding us in place. So these monks and these people that we know that are in these higher states are really balancing everything out. So the more of us that we have, we can balance out this experience. And remember, this experience is Maya. It's a temporal experience. So it's not like you're going to heal the world and it's just going to be gone. It's a dream that we're in, the collective dream. But it's what we have to live in. So we don't have a choice. We can't go anywhere else. So we have to be here. How do you know when you have gone beyond sattva, not attached to happiness?
Beyond sattva?
That means, I say, when you go to sleep, when you're in deep sleep, that's where you're beyond. When you're in the world, you have the qualities of the world have the three. So I guess if you are this monk who can stop his breathing and all that, I think that would be a state after sattva.
Well, yeah, a lot of the meditation techniques were designed to take you to that blissful state. And that blissful state, we experience it every night actually in deep sleep, but we're not conscious of it. So meditation is a way to realize, to go there consciously, to that blissful state. And the blissful state is the first manifestation of our human body as it becomes material. So it's the closest one to pure spirit, pure consciousness.
Great. It's hard for me to trust my decisions. I'm always in reactive mode. It's been like this my whole life. I'm always in fear. I'm not able to communicate my thoughts or know what to do in many situations. Then I spend my time replaying scenarios in my mind. Does doing chakra work help? I feel like I'm blocked, not able to be creative and communicate. I don't believe in myself. Well, of course, balancing out your chakras, its energy in your body is nice. But I think what I could totally relate, because I do fall into that where I don't trust myself. And when I don't trust my decisions, I get fearful, and then I make, kind of the same thing, that reactive mode, and then I replay it in my mind. And so here's what I do, and this is, I think, really will be really helpful, is you have to ask yourself, what am I attached to? Because ultimately there's some foundation. It's like, what if I made the wrong decision? Like, what does that mean about me? And what am I clinging to that's driving all that reactive mode? And so is it, I need to be liked, I need to be accepted. I feel it's security if people agree with me and hear me. Like, what is that attachment? Because what happens is, like I said, when we're attached, we believe we can't have what we want. And so if you're saying no one's can't communicate, you can't communicate your thoughts, if you're in that reactive rajas mode, you're going to replay that. And then you're going to interpret what experience you had with a communication as, see, I can't communicate my thoughts. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's not really the issue, though. It's not about you communicating your thoughts, good or bad, or making the right decisions, good or bad. It's like, what is the deeper, really, what are you afraid of? What's the fear? And if you can get to that place, it's like, again, it's like watching all the plates fall and crash and be at peace. That's where you get that state of mind. But if you're still caught up in, if I can learn how to communicate and not be in fear, and do all these things and clear my chakras and make sure I'm okay, and then everything will be all right. You're still operating. There's something a deeper root, and it's this misunderstanding of your own self-concept. You are a divine, unlimited being, and and we all get caught up in the concept that we're an ego, that we're this human persona, that we're trying to make it in the world, and all those things that define us. So changing your self-concept would be first. And the fear is coming from the ego and not from your self-concept. So I would ask, if you believe in chakras, then you probably are a spiritual person. I would sit with, who am I? Who am I? And then the second question is, what am I afraid of? What am I running from? What am I grasping for? And what am I running from? What are those two ends that keep me in this like reactive mode? And you sit and you just watch and become aware. And I think that's going to give you a lot of insight. Your chakras are automatically balanced when you get out of fear. So you don't have to worry about doing it manually. You actually will be, and when you're in the sattvic state of mind, you will be aligned totally. So you don't have to manipulate that to do that. If you need to like do some practice, opening your heart, grounding yourself, I think grounding is really a great practice. To get it, when you're working with these higher concepts, do a head-to-toe relaxation. In our class, the first meditation is called the pure relaxation. Get into that state first, and then contemplate these ideas. What do I really fear? If I am an unlimited being, if I am pure consciousness, if I am the divine, what do I have to fear? And kind of examining the ego fears and seeing that they're not real, and that'll help.
Yeah. What she's describing is a perfect description of Tamas. It's a mind of not seeing possibility, right? Of kind of slowing down, a feeling that her will, her agency is not going to be able to affect change. And therefore you get that feeling. But keep in mind, what the gunas are saying, meaning these qualities that we're talking about, what it's saying is that we're able to observe our own mind and identify what state is my mind in. So it's not you that's in that state, it's your mind. Just like if your hand hurts or you have a little injury in your body somehow, your mind is able to tell you, how did I get here and what happened? The same thing with our mind. We're able to observe our mind and say, my mind is in a state of tamas. how can I move it towards sattva in a conscious way?
So you get into rajas first, though. Take small steps.
You make the decision to set yourself some goals that you can meet, to motivate yourself to take more action, and start getting into that rajic mind. Then your intention, of course, is then to move to sattva, to that clarity of vision, of trusting, because she's saying, I don't trust, right? Mm-hmm. And the trust can only come from that higher knowledge, understanding that it's my mind that's able to create these things, but I have to control my mind.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like, we have to remember that we're not the ego. The ego is something we use in this world to create, have an experience, but it's not all who we are. And it's and when we get into that place that I don't believe in myself, you shouldn't believe in your ego. Your ego is not really the be all savior for you. The savior is within you on a deeper level, your soul. On the other hand, there are situations when one is offered a better but more demanding position that can create concern when the person can do the job. What to do in a situation like that?
How to build your confidence. Absolutely. I think confidence is built by consciously trying to do what you're not sure you can do. Mm-hmm. And so it's a perfect situation for you to build that confidence. And you go in it understanding that this is a challenge, because the ego mind tends to do this. If something is challenging, it sees it as a curse, right? It's bad luck. It's the wrong situation. It's I got in over my head. Whatever the mind says, right? That's the ego. What you want to do is you want to approach it as, how is this teaching me something about myself? What is the potential here? You're accepting it as a challenge, and you're saying, I'm not sure I can do this, but I'm going to try to muster as much of my resources, my internal resources, to meet this challenge. And that's where growth happens right there. You start to grow as a person, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually.
And the confidence comes from you taking the action and trying versus coming from the feedback that you get. So confidence is built by sticking to a committed action, that I'm committing to do my best. And that's all anyone can ever ask of you. And that's where confidence comes from, is that I gave it a try. I'm willing to learn. I'm open to learn. That's all you can do. And you can't buy into what other people's opinions of you are, or what their opinions of your work is. It's what you're bringing, that you bring with full confidence, that you're bringing your best. And if you can honestly say, I brought my best to this, that's all you can bring to any situation. No one can ask you to do more than that. So anyway, great questions. I think that's all the questions. Great session today. We're looking forward to our class that starts on Monday. Please, I'll make sure I put a link here below. It's also in the feed. Please register, get your visualizations, start relaxing, getting into that pure state of mind. Rob has some one he did on the Book of Life, where you write yourself in the book of the awakened souls. It's really cool, and you float up into space. It's really nice. And some really good ones for worry-free.
You're making fun of me, aren't you?
No, I love it. I love it.
That's okay.
I'm not making fun. I love it. It's really cool. It's when I listened to it, Rob has played it for me, and my whole body was vibrating. It was just so powerful. And I know I do a lot of the visualization, so it's so nice to have your voice has such a resonance to it, and I think it's really wonderful.
No, you. We just saw the love guru.
Thank you. You're welcome. And I hope you appreciate this. Yes, this is a great time for the call. That's why we're doing the class at 11 o'clock Pacific for the course, actually, because we know there's so many of you in Europe, so many of our clients and fans over there, and we figured everyone's at home anyway, so you're not at the office. You could work, take your lunch hour early or a little later and spend some time with us and ask us questions and get the support you need. And we're here for you. So the mentors are here too. If you have questions, they'll be here answering questions. And really just know that you are powerful. Know who you are. And let's cultivate that sattvic mind together and create a ripple effect to everyone around you. And you could just start with your small circle and let's create some shifts in the world.
Yep. See you next time.
Okay. Take care.